The road out here feels like it forgets you the longer you drive. It was supposed to be a simple overnight haul. Just me, a tired engine, and a highway stretching through nowhere. The kind of route where time blurs, where the radio only catches static, and even your thoughts start to sound distant. I remember the fog rolling in low that night, swallowing the white lines of the road, until I could barely tell if I was moving forward or just circling something I couldn't see. That's when I saw the glow. A truck stop, sitting alone beyond the tree line, too bright for how far it was from anything. Neon signs flickered like they were struggling to stay awake. Open 24 hours hummed faintly, but the letters kept shifting, like they couldn't decide what they want to say. I should have kept driving. Every instinct said so. But fatigue has a way of bending logic into excuses. My tires rolled onto the gravel, slow and reluctant, like even the truck didn't want to be there. Inside, the air changed. Too quiet, too still. The kind of silence that presses against your ears until you start hearing things that aren't there. A man at the counter didn't look up. Not when I walked in. Not when the bell above the door rang. Not even when I stood right in front of him. Then I noticed something wrong with the mirror behind him. It wasn't reflecting me. And that's when I saw it. Night had already settled over the truck stop when I pushed open the diner door. Cold air followed me inside, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and old grease. The light above the entrance flickered like it was tired of staying on. Glass trembled faintly in its frame with every passing truck outside. The place felt half asleep, warm, but wrong in a way I couldn't explain yet. I chose a booth near the window. The vinyl seat stuck slightly to my coat, like it didn't want to let me go. Across the room, a man sat alone in the corner booth. Still, quiet, watching nothing in particular. He didn't touch his coffee. Didn't blink much either. That was when I noticed it. There was no shadow under his chair. The light above him was bright enough. Too bright, in fact. But the floor beneath him stayed empty, flat, untouched by darkness. I looked away once, then looked back again. Still nothing. A sudden laugh from the kitchen made me flinch. Dishes clattered somewhere behind the wall. But no one else seemed to notice him. The waitress passed right by his table. Her shoes squeaked on the tile. She didn't even glance down. The jukebox in the corner clicked alive on its own. A slow song began to play. No one pressed it. No one moved near it. And yet, the man's fingers shifted slightly. The music started again. Same song, same broken rhythm. Each time he adjusted his posture, the jukebox responded like it was waiting for him. My throat tightened. Coffee suddenly tasted too bitter in the air, even before I ordered it. I turned my eyes toward the window instead. Reflections in the glass showed the diner behind me. Booths, lights, empty sugar jars. But his reflection wasn't there. Not missing. Just bent away, like the glass refused to hold his shape. I blinked hard, thinking it was exhaustion. Long driving does that sometimes. But when I looked again, every reflection in the diner glass shifted slightly away from him, like space itself avoided where he sat. A fork dropped somewhere behind me. Metal hit tile with a sharp, lonely sound. No one reacted, not even him. That's when I realized something worse. It wasn't just a shadow. It was everything around him pretending he wasn't real. The air near his booth felt colder. Not freezing, just absent. Like warmth forgot that corner existed. The jukebox stopped mid-song, then restarted again without warning. Always when he moved. Always when he breathed. I tried to look away again, but my eyes kept pulling back. Like something in me needed to confirm he was still there. The man finally turned his head. Slow, careful. He looked straight at me. His face didn't change. No expression. No curiosity. No anger. Just stillness shaped like a person. His lips moved. But the sound came from somewhere else. Not matching him at all. It felt delayed. Like the voice had to travel too far to reach me. "You shouldn't be here," it said softly. But his mouth kept moving after the words ended, like it hadn't received the message yet. The diner lights flickered again, longer this time. For a second, everything went dim, and in that darkness, I saw it, not his shadow, not even his outline, just a gap in the world where something should have been, empty, watching, waiting. The jukebox clicked again, without music this time. Only silence came out of it. Heavy silence, thick enough to feel against my skin. The man slowly returned to his booth position, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't seen anything at all. Around me, forks scraped plates. A chair creaked. Someone laughed quietly near the counter. Normal sounds. Pretending. But none of them looked at him. Not once. My hand tightened around my cup. Warm ceramic against cold fingers. I wanted to leave. That thought came clearly. Simple. Clean. Urgent. But my legs didn't move right away. Like the booth had leaned slightly closer to me. The man shifted again. The jukebox started. Same song. Same broken loop. And then I noticed something worse in the shadow. When he moved, the reflection in the window moved first. Before he did, I swallowed hard. The air felt thinner now. Like the diner was forgetting how to hold me too. His head tilted slightly. Just enough to show he was still aware of me. Still watching. Still waiting for something I hadn't done yet. His lips parted once more. This time, no sound came out at first. Only movement. Then the voice arrived late again. You already saw me. The lights flickered again. And for a moment, I couldn't remember if I had ever walked in here at all. Just the hum of the jukebox. Just the empty space under his chair. Just the feeling that something was missing from the world, and it was shaped exactly like him. The night outside the truck stop had gone completely still when I stepped down onto the cracked concrete. Cold air pressed against my face, dry and sharp, carrying the faint smell of oil and dust. The gas station lights buzz overhead, flickering like tired insects trapped in glass. Every sound felt stretched distant, like it had to travel too far to reach me. My truck sat beside pump 3, engine ticking softly as it cooled, metal clicking in slow, uneven breaths. I should have just filled the tank and left. That was a plan, but the numbers on the pump weren't behaving right. I pressed the nozzle. Fuel began to flow. The digital screen lit up bright green against the dark. Except it wasn't going up. It was going down. 8.41, 8.40, 8.39. I froze. The sound of fuel rushing into the tank felt heavier than it should have been, like it wasn't just liquid moving, but time itself slipping through a pipe. The digits flickered every second, like they were being erased from existence one layer at a time. A soft wind moved through the station. It carried the faint scent of burnt rubber and cold metal. I glanced toward the other pumps. That's when I saw them. 2 drivers stood completely still, frozen mid-action, one holding a nozzle halfway into his tank, the other staring at his screen, like it had stopped speaking to him. Neither blinked, neither moved, just paused, like the world had forgotten them halfway through a sentence. A sudden voice cut through the quiet. Don't finish it. I turned sharply. The attendant stood behind the glass booth. Dim light painted his face in tired yellow tones. He didn't look surprised to see me, only worried in a way that felt rehearsed. Stop pumping, he said again, quieter this time. My hand stayed on the nozzle, still feeding fuel into the tank. The numbers kept falling. 7.88, 7.87, 7.86. I should have released it, but something about the rhythm felt wrong to break. Like stopping it would make it notice me. The attendant stepped closer to the window, pressing his palm against the glass. You don't understand, he said. His breath fogged the surface, but only for a moment. Then it disappeared too fast. I looked back at pump 3. The screen flickered harder now, digits stuttering like they were losing memory. 7.21, 7.20, 7.19. The fuel line trembled slightly in my hand, not from pressure, from something else underneath it, a vibration like the world was trying to pull it back. Behind me, one of the frozen drivers slowly shifted, not fully moving, just enough to show he was changing positions between seconds, like time couldn't decide where to place him anymore. The air grew heavier. My chest tightened without warning. I heard something faint through the pump, not mechanical, not electrical, a low hum like distant breathing, coming from inside the fuel line. The attendant slammed his hand against the glass again. Now! He mouthed silently, urgent, fractured, but I couldn't move. The numbers were almost gone now. 6.03, 6.02, 6.01. The screen flickered between brightness and darkness, like it was blinking out of existence. I swear the fuel itself felt colder, not just temperature, but meaning, like it didn't belong in this moment anymore. Another driver near pump 5 suddenly dropped his nozzle. It hit the ground with a soft, delayed clang, but the sound arrived a second too late. Everything here was slipping out of sync. I tried to pull the nozzle away. My grip didn't respond immediately. My fingers felt like they were deciding whether to obey me. 5.44, 5.43, 5.42. The attendant's face changed. Not fear exactly, more like recognition. Like he had seen this happen before, too many times to stop it. The lights above us flickered harder. Longer gaps of darkness stretched between pulses, and in those gaps, I felt it, not seen, not heard, just absence. Like something enormous was being slowly subtracted from reality with every digit that disappeared. The pump beeped once. Too soft, almost polite. For 0.91, for 0.90, for 0.89. The fuel line tightened suddenly in my hand. Like it didn't want to let go anymore. Like it had learned the shape of my grip. The attendant stepped back from the glass. Slow, careful, as if watching too long might trap him too. "Stop at 0, he whispered, though I couldn't tell if I heard it or just understood it. The digits slowed. Not stopped, just resisting. 3.12, 3.11, 3.10. The hum inside the pump grew louder. Still not mechanical. Still not human. Something in between. Like time itself breathing through a narrow space. The frozen drivers began to shift again. Slightly more now. Their movements no longer aligned with their bodies. Like they were being rewritten incorrectly. 2.55, 2.54, 2.53. My reflection in the pump screen flickered once. But for a fraction of a second, it didn't match me. It was still holding the nozzle, even after I thought I wasn't. My breath caught. The fuel was almost gone now. Almost nothing left to take. 1.09, 1.08, 1.07. The air around the station felt thinner. Not emptier, just less real. Like something essential was being drained alongside the fuel. The attendant closed his eyes, like he couldn't watch anymore. 0.03, 0.02. The hum stopped. Everything stopped. 0.01. Silence stretched too long. Then the screen flickered once more. And instead of 0, it showed negative. Minus 0.01. The nozzle didn't release my hand. It felt like it had already decided I wasn't finished yet. The restroom at the back of the truck stop smelled like bleach that had been left too long in the air. Sharp, cold, almost metallic against the tongue. The overhead light buzzed in a slow, uneven rhythm. Not steady enough to trust. Not broken enough to leave. I stepped inside anyway. The door closed behind me with a soft click that felt louder than it should have. The sink dripped once. Then again, after a delay that didn't match the first sound. I stared at the mirror. It was slightly fogged, like someone had just been there, even though I knew no one had. My reflection looked normal at first. Tired eyes, dusty coat, road-worn silence. Then something shifted behind me. A shape appeared in the mirror, standing just a step too close. A woman. I turned immediately. Nothing was there, only empty tiles and the faint hum of the light above. But in the mirror, she stayed, still behind me, still watching. My throat tightened. The air suddenly felt colder, like the room had leaned away from warmth. I looked back at the mirror again. She didn't move her lips at first, just stood there, waiting like she had already spoken and was tired of repeating herself. Then her mouth began to form words. But the sound didn't arrive on time. It came late, like it had to travel through something heavy to reach me. "You're already inside," she said. I froze. The sink drip echoed again. Once, twice, but now out of sync with itself. The woman's reflection tilted her head slightly. Not curious, not emotional, just confirming something. The light above me flickered harder. Longer gaps of darkness stretched between pulses. In those gaps, I saw her closer. not moving, just nearer than before the light went out. I stepped back. My shoe scraped against the tile with a sound that felt delayed in the air. But in the mirror, I didn't step back immediately. My reflection stayed still for half a second longer than me, then moved after. Wrong. My breath caught again. The woman's reflection lifted one hand. Slow, careful, but I hadn't moved mine yet. She did it first. I looked down at my own hands. They were still at my sides, but in the mirror, they were already raised slightly, like something was rehearsing me. The buzzing overhead deepened. It felt less like electricity now, more like pressure behind the ears. The woman's lips moved again, this time faster, but the words still arrived late. "You shouldn't look too long," she said. I forced myself to turn away from the mirror, but the reflection didn't follow immediately. For a brief moment, I was still facing her in the glass, even though I wasn't anymore. That shouldn't be possible. I turned back too quickly. The mirror showed me standing alone. No woman behind me, just empty tiles. I exhaled once, sharp and uneven, but the relief didn't last. The reflection smiled slightly, even though I didn't. My stomach tightened. The sink dripped again. Closer now, not behind me, inside the mirror. The woman reappeared slowly, like she had been waiting for permission. She stood even closer than before. Too close for comfort. Too close for physics. Her reflection leaned forward, mouth slightly open. This time I didn't hear her words at first, only saw them form. Then they arrived late again. "You will open the door," she said softly. My hand moved slightly toward the exit, without me deciding to. Just a small shift, barely noticeable. But in the mirror, my hand moved farther, already reaching for the door handle. I pulled it back quickly. The reflection hesitated, then corrected itself. Like it had been caught, the lights flickered harder. The room felt narrower now, smaller, like the walls had shifted closer, without moving. The woman's face didn't change, but her eyes did. They weren't looking at me anymore. They were looking slightly ahead of me, like she knew what I would do before I did it. The sink drip stopped. Total silence filled the restroom. Too complete, too intentional. Then the mirror fog thickened slightly, and her voice came again. Late, but heavier this time. "You already tried leaving," she said. My heart skipped once. I reached for the door instinctively. My fingers touched the handle. Cold metal. Real. I turned it. It didn't move. Not locked, just refusing. Behind me, the mirror flickered once more. And in that flicker, she was right behind me again, closer than before, breathing without sound. The reflection didn't need to arrive late this time. It was already waiting for me to notice it. The night outside the diner had grown heavier, like the sky was slowly pressing down on the ground. Cold wind moved through the parking lot in uneven waves, carrying dust, gravel, and a faint smell of diesel. I stepped out just to clear my head, just for a moment, but my eyes locked onto it immediately. Parking spot 7. There was a truck there, still running. Or, at least, it sounded like it was. The engine gave off a low, steady idle. Not loud, not aggressive, just present, like it had always been there. I glanced away for a second, rubbed my eyes. When I looked back, it hadn't changed. Same position, same angle, same exact distance from the painted lines. Something about that felt wrong. Not strange. Wrong. A driver walked past me toward his own vehicle, boots crunching softly on gravel. I pointed without thinking. "That truck, has it been there long?" He didn't even look at it, just shrugged. "Don't know what you're talking about." Then he kept walking. My stomach tightened slightly. I turned back to spot 7. The truck's headlights were off, but the dashboard glow faintly lit the inside, like someone was sitting there, waiting. I blinked slowly. Once, twice. The dust around the tires shifted slightly, then settled again, but in a way that didn't feel consistent, like it had tried to move and change its mind halfway. A gust of wind rolled through the lot, cold enough to sting the skin. When it passed, I noticed something. The dust around the truck had reset, completely clean now, like it had just been washed by time itself. I froze. Then it happened again. A faint shimmer across the ground, and suddenly the dust returned. Same pattern, same shape, then vanished again. Like reality couldn't decide what belonged there. The truck's engine kept idling. Constant, patient. I stepped closer, without realizing it. Each step sounded slightly delayed in my ears, like the sound had to catch up to my movement. The air grew colder near Spot 7. Not weather cold, empty cold. The kind that feels like something important is missing. I stopped a few feet away. The truck's side mirror caught my reflection, but it didn't match me exactly. My reflection blinked a second too late, then straightened its posture slightly after I had already done it. I backed up immediately. My heartbeat felt too loud in my chest. Behind me, another driver passed by. I heard him clearly, but his footsteps didn't fully sync with what I saw. Like his body and sound were no longer agreeing on timing. I turned back to the truck. The engine's sound deepened slightly. Not louder, heavier, like it had gained weight without changing volume. I noticed something else now. The truck's tires weren't spinning, yet the engine didn't sound parked. It sounded active, like it was moving somewhere else while staying still here. A chill ran up my spine. I looked around for the driver. There should have been someone getting out, checking the hood, resting against the door. Something. But there was nothing. No one. I stepped closer again, slower this time. The windshield was dark, slightly reflective. Inside, nothing visible, except faint movement in the glass. Not inside the truck. Inside the reflection. Something shifted behind me in the mirror of the window. But when I turned quickly, no one was there. Just empty asphalt and flickering lights. The truck remained unchanged. Still in Spot 7. Still idling. Still pretending time didn't apply to it. I reached into my pocket without thinking. Keys, phone, small metal items. All of them felt slightly warm, like they had been held too long. In another moment, the engine sound suddenly dipped, then rose again, as if reacting to my presence. I stepped back once more. The moment I did, the dust around the truck shifted again. But this time, it didn't reset. It reversed, forming patterns that looked like tire tracks leading into nowhere. Tracks I couldn't see happening, only their aftermath. My breath slowed. The truck's headlights flickered once. Just once. And in that instant, I swear I saw it move. Not forward, not backward, just slightly out of position, like it had always been somewhere else. And this place was only borrowing its shape. The engine kept running, patient, unbothered, like it knew I would keep coming back to check. Like Spot 7 was never empty, just waiting for me to notice it never left. The diner was quieter than before, like the night had pressed itself against the windows and refused to let sound escape. Warm light spilled across the floor in uneven pools, flickering every few seconds like a tired memory. I stepped back inside without thinking. The door closed behind me with a soft chime that felt too clean for a place like this. The air smelled like burnt coffee and old sugar. Comforting at first, then slowly wrong. Behind the counter stood the cashier. He didn't look up right away. Just wiped the same spot on the counter again and again. Slow, repetitive, mechanical. I approached carefully. My boots sounded louder than they should have on the tile. Then he spoke. Your usual? I froze. My throat tightened slightly. I don't come here, I said quietly. That made him pause. Not in confusion. In correction. He finally looked up and smiled. Not warmly. Not coldly. Just correctly. Like he had been expecting that exact response. Yes, you do, he said softly. The words didn't feel like a claim, more like a reminder. Behind him, the coffee machine hissed once, even though no one had touched it. I glanced at the counter. There was already a cup sitting there, fresh steam rising from it. My name was written on the label, my real name. I hadn't said it out loud. I hadn't given it to anyone here. My hand hovered slightly above the cup. I didn't pick it up. The clerk didn't rush me. Didn't blink either. Just waited. Too still. The hum of the refrigerator behind him filled the silence in slow waves. Like breathing. I looked around the diner. Other customers sat in booths, eating, drinking, staring at nothing in particular. But something felt off. Their movements were too synchronized, too calm, like they were following instructions no one could hear. The clerk leaned forward slightly. "Go on," he said gently. I glanced at him again. His smile hadn't changed, not even slightly. I reached for the cup. The moment my fingers touched it, a sharp coldness ran up my arm. Not pain, not shock, recognition. Like my body remembered something my mind didn't. The coffee's surface rippled slightly, even though I hadn't moved it. I looked down. The reflection in the liquid didn't match me. It showed me sitting in different clothes, different time, different posture, as if I had already been here before many times. My grip loosened slightly. The clerk watched carefully, like he was checking if I would remember something. "You're early today," he said. My chest tightened. "I don't think I've ever been here," I replied. That made his smile pause for the first time, just a fraction, then return. "Yes," he said slowly. "You always say that first." The words settled too heavily in the air. Behind me, a spoon dropped somewhere in the diner. It hit the floor with a delayed sound, like the impact needed permission to exist. I turned slightly. A man in the booth hadn't moved, but his plate was now empty. I hadn't seen him eat. The clerk tapped the counter once. Patient. The sound echoed twice, not because it was loud, but because it arrived late the second time. My name still sat on the cup in front of me, staring back, waiting. I forced myself to step back from the counter. The clerk didn't stop me, didn't call after me, just spoke softly as I turned away. "Same as last time?" I stopped, even though I didn't want to. Something in the question felt like it had history attached to it. Too much history. I didn't answer. When I turned back again, the clerk had already begun preparing something else, without being told, without looking, like the order was already decided, like I never had a choice in it. The coffee machine hissed again, and this time it sounded like it said my name back to me. I left the diner expecting distance, space, direction, anything that felt like forward motion. The road outside was quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. No passing cars, no wind pushing through the trees, just a low hum of my engine and the faint crackle of tires on gravel. The truck stop sign behind me glowed in the mirror for a few seconds longer than it should have. Then it faded into fog. I drove. Minutes passed, or maybe more. The highway stretched ahead in a pale ribbon of asphalt, disappearing into a thin layer of mist. Streetlights stood too far apart, flickering like they were unsure of their purpose. I kept my eyes forward, kept moving, but something began to feel wrong in the rhythm of the road. The same curve appeared again, identical. I slowed slightly, passed it anyway. A road sign emerged from the fog. Same shape, same rusted edges, same faded paint. Truck stopped 2 miles. I blinked once. I had just left it. My grip tightened on the wheel. The tires hummed steadily beneath me, but the sound felt repeated, like I had already heard this exact stretch of road before. I pushed forward again. The fog thickened slightly. Cool air slipped through the cracked window, carrying the smell of wet metal and old rain. Then I saw it again. The same sign, same position, same distance. But this time, the paint looked slightly newer. Too new, as if time had reversed its aging just for that object. I slowed down, heart steady but uneasy. Another curve appeared ahead. Exact same angle. Exact same guardrail bend. My stomach tightened. I turned the wheel slightly, forcing myself through it. The road responded like it had no interest in letting me leave. Minutes passed again, or the illusion of them did. Then, the truck stop sign appeared ahead once more. Closer this time. Bright. Waiting. I slammed my foot lightly on the brake. The tires whispered against the asphalt. My breath came slower now. Controlled. Careful. I turned around immediately. Full rotation. No hesitation. The road behind me should have been open. Straight. Clear. Instead, the same sign stood behind me now, facing the other direction, exactly where I had come from. My chest tightened. I drove forward again, faster this time. The fog pressed against the windshield like a soft wall. Wipers moved even though there was no rain. Each swipe revealed the same road, Same curve, same broken shoulder line, same fading paint on asphalt. The sky above changed slightly. Not color, not clouds. Time. It shifted from night to something closer to dusk, then back again, like the sky couldn't remember which version it was supposed to be. A truck passed me in the opposite lane. I glanced quickly. Driver slumped forward slightly, headlights flickering. But as we crossed paths, I saw my own face in his windshield reflection, just for a second too long. Then he was gone. Or maybe I don't know anymore. The road bent again. Same shape, same distance. But now the guardrails looked slightly bent inward, like they were slowly closing the road behind me. My breathing grew shallow. I checked the rearview mirror. Empty road. Then the truck stop sign appeared again. This time directly ahead. Impossible distance. Too close. I stopped the truck completely. Engine still running. But silence outside grew heavier, like the world had paused to wait for my decision. I looked left, right. Nothing but fog and looping asphalt. Then I noticed something on the dashboard reflection. A faint flicker of the truck stop sign behind me. Even though I hadn't turned around, I slowly looked into the mirror, and it was there. Behind me, again, the same glowing sign. Perfectly positioned, like it had never been anywhere else. My stomach dropped slightly. I turned off the engine. Silence fell instantly. Too clean, too absolute. Then a faint hum started again. From the road itself. Not the truck, not the wind. The road, like it was breathing through asphalt cracks. I looked forward once more. The highway stretched ahead. Familiar, patient, and somewhere in that fog, the truck stop waited again. Not behind me, not ahead, just everywhere at once. The highway had gone quiet in a way that felt too complete. Even the tires seemed to roll softer now, like the road was listening. Fog pressing on both sides, pale and heavy, swallowing the edges of the world. I kept driving, not sure where forward even meant anymore. The radio had been off since I left the truck stop. At least, I thought it was off. A faint crackle slipped through the silence. I glanced at the dashboard. The dial lit up by itself. No touch, no warning, just light returning where it shouldn't have been. Static filled the cab first, sharp and uneven, like broken glass turning slowly inside the speakers. I reached toward the knob, but before I could touch it, a voice came through, soft, calm, almost patient. It didn't sound like a broadcast. It sounded close. "Keep going," it said. My hand froze midair. The road ahead curved slightly, disappearing into fog again. The voice didn't stop. "In 3 seconds, you'll see a sign." I swallowed. My grip tightened on the wheel. 1, 2, 3. A road sign emerged from fog. Same shape, same rusted post. I didn't read it at first. I already knew I would. The radio clicked softly. "You saw it," the voice said. My breath slowed without permission. I didn't answer. The static returned for a moment, softer this time, almost like it was thinking. Then it spoke again. "In 10 seconds, you will think of turning back." My fingers tensed on the wheel. I hadn't decided that yet. But suddenly, I was. Not because I wanted to, because I already had. The thought felt placed there like a memory inserted too early. I waited. 10 seconds passed. Exactly as promised. A faint urge rose in me, sharp and sudden. Turn back. I didn't. The radio hummed softly, like approval or disappointment. I couldn't tell. Then it spoke again. Now listen carefully. The static deepened. My headlights cut through the fog in uneven pulses, each blink revealing the same stretch of road over and over. The voice continued. "In 5 minutes, you will hear yourself speak." My throat tightened. I glanced at the empty passenger seat. Nothing there, just shadow and reflection. But the radio didn't wait for reaction. It kept going. "And you will not like what you say." The static suddenly sharpened. Not louder, clearer, like the signal had moved closer inside the speakers. I pressed the radio knob slightly, try and shut it off. It didn't respond, just turned brighter. The voice softened again, almost gentle. In 20 seconds, you will hear silence where a word should be. I frowned. Silence was already everywhere. Windless. Still, empty. But then I noticed it. The engine hum was fading slightly. Not stopping. Just being removed. Like someone was erasing layers of sound one by one. The radio crackled again. In 10 seconds, a station will disappear. I blinked. What station? I whispered without meaning to. The radio responded instantly. Yours. The word hit too cleanly, too final. The static surged, and for a split second, I heard other voices inside it. Distant drivers, unknown roads, all overlapping like fracture time. Then, one by one, they stopped. The radio spoke again. In 5 seconds, you will forget this frequency existed. My pulse quickened. I tried switching stations. Nothing changed. Each one returned to the same voice. Same calm tone. Same certainty. The road ahead bent slightly again. Same curve. Same impossible repetition. Then the voice returned for the last time. No prediction remains after silence. The static dropped instantly. Total quiet. The kind that feels heavier than sound ever did. I tapped the radio once. Nothing. No light. No crackle. No life. Just an empty dial pretending it had never spoken. But as I drove forward again, I realized something was missing. Not from the road. Not from the truck. From inside my head. A thought I couldn't remember having was already gone. The diner looked the same when I returned. Same flickering light above the counter. Same tired hum of refrigerators breathing in the back room. But something about it felt thinner now. Like the place had lost a layer of itself while I was gone. I didn't remember deciding to come back inside. I just found myself there, standing near the entrance, watching the booths. People were still seated, still eating, still existing in quiet loops of movement that didn't seem fully awake. Then I saw him, a man sitting alone near the far wall. He wasn't eating, wasn't drinking, wasn't even looking around, just waiting, as if the diner had already agreed to something with him. I stepped forward slowly. The floor felt slightly uneven under my boots, like it shifted a second after I moved. The man looked up, not surprised, not curious, just ready. He spoke before I reached him. "Your name," he said softly. I stopped. The question didn't feel normal. It felt like it already had an answer. "I didn't ask for anything," I replied. He tilted his head slightly, like he was correcting a mistake in reality. "You will," he said. A chill moved through the air between us. Not wind, not temperature, something quieter, like memory being disturbed. He reached into his coat slowly. His movement felt delayed, like the world wasn't sure when to allow it. From his pocket, he pulled out folded bills, neatly stacked, too clean for this place. He placed them on the table. "I buy names," he said. My throat tightened slightly. "That's not a thing," I said. But even as I said it, I wasn't fully sure. The words felt weaker than they should have, like they had lost meaning before reaching the air. He smiled faintly, not warm, not cruel, just patient. "It is," he replied. Outside the window, headlights passed, but their light seemed delayed, like it arrived after the cars were already gone. The man tapped the table once. Soft, controlled. The sound echoed twice. Once immediately, once a second later. Wrong timing. Always wrong timing. "I'll start small," he said. Then he looked directly at me. "Tell me your name." I hesitated. It should have been easy. But something inside my mind shifted slightly when I tried to reach it, like the word was there, but behind glass. "Why?" I asked instead. He leaned forward slightly, and the air between us felt colder again. "Because you won't need it after tonight," he said. A faint pressure formed behind my eyes. Not pain, not dizziness, just absence trying to take shape. He tapped the table again, this time softer, and for a moment, I noticed something on the walls. Photographs, dozens of them, old diner pictures, truckers, families, travelers, faces smiling under fluorescent lights. But when I looked closer, the faces were slightly blurred, not out of focus, just incomplete, like something had erased their edges. The man noticed me looking. "That happens," he said quietly. "What does?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he placed another bill on the table. "I remember for you," he said. My stomach tightened. I stepped back slightly. The chairs around us creaked at different times than expected, like they were remembering movement instead of reacting to it. The man's eyes stayed fixed on me. Waiting. Always waiting. "I can give you money," he said, "for every name you don't need anymore." My breath slowed. "What happens to the names?" I asked. He smiled faintly again. And this time it didn't feel like a smile at all. "They stopped needing you too," he said. A silence stretched between us. Too clean, too organized. I tried to think of my name again, but it didn't come easily anymore. Not gone, just far away, like it had moved slightly out of reach. The man slid the money closer, not forcing, not rushing, just offering something inevitable. Outside, the diner lights flickered once, and for a brief moment, I couldn't recognize my reflection in the window, not because it changed, but because I wasn't sure what it was supposed to look like anymore. The man spoke softly again. "Start with something easy," he said. "Tell me what your mother used to call you." My chest tightened. I tried to answer, but the word didn't arrive. Only silence did, and somewhere inside that silence, something important quietly stepped away from me. The hallway to the restroom felt longer than it should have. Not stretched like space, but delayed like it was arriving in pieces. Each step I took landed a fraction too late in my ears. Like the sound had to catch up to my body. The door creaked open slowly. Cold air drifted out, carrying the smell of damp tile and faded cleaner. Inside, the lights buzzed low and uneven. Pale, weak, almost struggling to stay awake. I stepped in anyway. The door clicked shut behind me, and the silence that followed felt too precise, like it had been placed there on purpose. The mirror above the sink was slightly fogged, not from steam, not from use, just presence. A single stall door stood half open at the far end, still, waiting. Then I heard it, a voice from inside the stall, soft, familiar, my own voice. But I hadn't spoken. I froze. The words came again. "Not from now. From slightly ahead of now. I told you not to come back here." My breath tightened. The stall door creaked slightly, though no wind moved through the room. I stepped closer. Each step felt like it was being repeated somewhere else before I made it. The voice inside spoke again. Strained, low. This is where it starts again. I swallowed hard. The sink dripped once behind me. Then again delayed. Wrong rhythm. I turned slightly toward the mirror. My reflection was there, but its mouth wasn't still. It moved a fraction before I did, speaking without sound. I turned back quickly. The stall door was now fully closed, even though I hadn't seen it move. The air grew colder, not physically, mentally, like the room had decided to remember something I hadn't lived yet. From inside the stall, the voice returned, this time closer. "You already tried leaving," it said. My fingers tightened slightly at my sides. I didn't remember trying anything, but the certainty in the voice made that thought feel uncertain. The stall door shifted slightly, a faint scrape against tile. Not opening, not closing, just adjusting, like it was aligning itself with time. Another voice slipped through, not mine this time. A second version of me. "You turned left at the wrong light." My throat tightened. The words didn't feel like imagination. They felt like memory arriving too early. The stall door knocked once from the inside. Soft, controlled. I didn't respond. But my reflection in the mirror did. Its head tilted slightly, even though mine hadn't. The stall spoke again. Calm, certain. "You always come here before you understand." The buzzing lights above flickered harder. Longer gaps of darkness began to stretch between pulses. And in those gaps, I heard more. Not one voice. Many, all mine, all speaking slightly out of sync. The stall door handle turned slowly. I hadn't seen anyone approach it. I hadn't heard footsteps. But it turned anyway, then stopped, waiting, like it was checking if I was ready to witness something I had already done. I stepped back without thinking. The sink dripped again, but this time it sounded like it came from inside the stall. Not behind me, not outside, inside. The mirror fog thickened. My reflection sharpened slightly, too sharply, like it was becoming more real than I was. The stall voice softened, almost gentle now. "Don't open it yet," it said. A pause followed, then quieter. "Not until you hear yourself leave." My chest tightened. I hadn't moved toward it, but the thought of moving felt pre-written. The stall door creaked again, just a small sound, but it didn't come from movement. It came from anticipation, like something inside was adjusting its patience. I looked at the exit door behind me. For a second, I considered leaving, but the reflection in the mirror didn't follow that thought. It stayed facing the stall, already watching, already waiting. The stall spoke one last time, and this time, the voice wasn't inside it anymore. It was everywhere. "You're going to open it," it said softly. "And when you do, you'll remember why you already did." The night outside the restroom felt colder than before, not because the air changed, but because everything felt slightly less real than it had a moment ago. I stepped out into the parking lot, slowly. Gravel shifted under my boots with a delayed crunch, like the ground was listening before responding. Above me, the truck stop lights buzzed in uneven rhythms, pale yellow, flickering, weak against the dark sky. Each light seemed to hesitate before turning on again, like it wasn't sure it should continue existing. I stood still for a moment, just watching. That's when I noticed it. The lights weren't random. They were blinking in patterns, too structured to be broken, too intentional to be accidental. One light flickered twice, paused, then once. Another followed. I frowned slightly. The rhythm felt familiar, not like memory, like instruction. I stepped closer to the edge of the lot. The wind moved lightly across the pavement, carrying dust and faint heat from distant engines. But the lights kept speaking, blinking, pausing, repeating. I tried to ignore it at first, tried to focus on the truck instead. But the pattern pulled my attention back every time. It wasn't noise. It wasn't sound. It was meaning forming without permission. 2 blinks. Pause. 1 blink. Pause. 3 blinks. My throat tightened slightly. I didn't understand Morse code, but something inside me did. The message felt like it was already translated before I even noticed it. The lights repeated again, slower this time, more deliberate, each cycle sharper than the last. I stepped backward slightly, eyes fixed upward. The buzzing above seemed louder now, closer, like the lights had moved down from the poles into the air itself. Another sequence began. 3 blinks. Pause. 3 blinks. Pause. 3 blinks. I froze. That repetition didn't feel random anymore. It felt urgent, personal. The wind stopped completely. Even the distant hum of trucks faded for a moment. Only the lights remained active, speaking. I swallowed hard, and then the realization hit slowly. This wasn't broadcasted. It wasn't for everyone. It was aimed. The pattern shifted again, faster now, almost impatient. My skin tightened slightly as I watched. The message was repeating itself in tighter loops, like it was trying to force understanding into me before I resisted it. Then the sequence stopped. All lights froze mid-flicker. The entire lot went half dark. Not fully black, just suspended, like reality had paused mid-breath. And in that suspended silence, one final pattern appeared. Slow, clean, precise. I felt it before I understood it. My stomach tightened. My pulse slowed. The message wasn't just being shown anymore. It was being confirmed. Each blink landed like a soft knock against my thoughts. Not words, not language, something deeper. I stepped back again, slowly. The parking lot felt larger now. Empty spaces stretching further than they should, like the world had quietly expanded while I wasn't looking. The lights flickered once more, and in that flicker, I saw something impossible, not written in light, but understood in it. The message had been there the entire time, waiting, not for decoding, for recognition. My breathing slowed, too slow. My hands felt slightly distant from my body. like I was being observed from a step behind myself. The lights blinked one last time, all at once. Perfect synchronization. And then they spelled it clearly, not in letters, not in sound, but in certainty. Do not stay long. The moment I understood it fully, the message changed, just slightly, as if it had noticed I was listening. The final blink came late, too late, and it formed something else beneath the warning. Something I hadn't seen before. Something that felt like it had been waiting underneath every previous message. The last light dimmed slowly, but before it died completely, it flashed once more, and in that final flicker, it showed the time I arrived. The truck stop felt quieter after the parking lot lights went out. Not darker, just less willing to exist fully. I stood near the edge of the building, half in shadow, half under flickering spill light from the diner sign. Everything around me seemed slightly delayed again, like the world was repeating itself a fraction after it happened. That's when I saw him. Outside, near the edge of the lot, a man standing still beneath a broken light pole. He wasn't looking at me directly, but he wasn't looking away either, just positioned in my direction. I watched him for a moment. He lifted his right hand slowly, like he was adjusting his coat. I didn't move, but something felt wrong. A second later, I raised my hand, without meaning to. My fingers stopped halfway. I froze. The man outside didn't stop. He continued the motion, perfectly, calmly, like I was following him instead of the other way around. My breath tightened slightly. I lowered my hand. He did the same, exactly at the same time. No delay now. No echo. Direct imitation. I stepped forward once. He stepped forward once. Same distance. Same rhythm. Same hesitation. But I hadn't decided to mirror him. My body had already agreed. The wind picked up slightly, brushing across the gravel. It carried the smell of oil and old metal again. The man tilted his head slightly. I did too. Too fast. Too automatic. My stomach tightened. I tried to stop moving entirely. He stopped as well. Perfect stillness between us. But the silence didn't feel equal. It felt observed. Like something was measuring how long I could resist. The man lifted his hand again. Slow. Controlled. I didn't want to follow this time. I stayed still. For half a second, nothing happened. Then my hand lifted anyway. Before I made the decision, before thought caught up, my breath caught sharply. I stepped back. He stepped back. Not delayed. Not reflected. Matched. Exactly. The realization sank in slowly. He wasn't copying me. Not anymore. He was anticipating me. My movements no longer belonged only to me. I turned slightly toward the diner lights. At the same angle. Same pace. Same hesitation point. My pulse quickened. I tried something small. A twitch of the fingers. Barely noticeable. He did it too. Instantly. No delay at all. My chest tightened. The space between us felt thinner now. Like the distance was being reduced without movement. I stepped backward again. He stepped backward again. But this time, he moved first. My mind lagged behind for a moment. Then my body corrected itself. Too late. The man's head lifted slightly. And I felt it clearly now. He wasn't reacting. He was leading. The wind dropped completely. Even the hum of the diner sign faded into a low, distant vibration. Everything felt held in place, waiting for instruction. I forced myself to stop moving entirely. No breath, no shift, no motion. The man outside did the same, but not immediately. A fraction of delay, a reversal. For the first time, he hesitated after me. I focused on that. A small crack in pattern. I didn't move. Neither did he. The silence stretched longer. Too long. Then he smiled faintly, not visible from distance. But I felt it anyway, like it happened in the space between us instead of on his face. I raised my hand slowly again, testing. He raised his hand. But now, I noticed something worse. His movement began before mine. Just slightly. Barely enough to notice, but enough to understand. He wasn't mirroring anymore. He was predicting. I stepped back sharply. He stepped back first. My breath hitched. The man tilted his head again, watching me without needing eyes to focus. I realized then what this was becoming. Not a reflection, not imitation. Something closer to rehearsal. Like my actions were already written and he had read ahead. The air between us felt heavier, compressed. I tried to stop thinking about movement entirely, but even that felt unsafe, because now he reacted before thought formed. The lights above flickered once, and in that flicker, he was closer, not physically, but in certainty, like the space between us had agreed to shrink. I stood still again, and for the first time, he didn't copy me. He waited, like he already knew what I would do next, and was giving me time to realize I no longer had to decide it. The diner was still open when I returned again, still warm, still humming, still pretending nothing had changed. But I could feel it now. Every time I came back inside, something less of me did. The air smelled stronger than before. Coffee, sugar, burnt milk, comforting at first, then slowly overwhelming. I stood near the counter, without speaking. The clerk looked up immediately, like he had been waiting inside that exact moment of silence. "You look tired," he said softly. I didn't answer. There was a cup already waiting on the counter, steam rising gently from it. No order taken, no request made, just prepared. The clerk slid it slightly closer. "Free tonight," he said. I frowned slightly. "Nothing here is free," I replied. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It is," he said, "just not for you." My fingers hovered above the cup. Warm ceramic, steady heat. It should have felt normal, but something inside it felt layered, like warmth sitting on top of something colder underneath. I hesitated. The clerk didn't rush me. He never rushed anything, only watched, always watching. I lifted the cup slowly. The steam brushed my face. Soft, familiar. I took a sip. For a second, nothing happened. Just warmth, just taste. Then the world shifted slightly. Not around me, inside me. A memory blinked, gone before I could hold it. I froze. The cup stayed near my lips. I blinked slowly. Something important had just slipped away, but I couldn't name it. It was already too far. The clerk nodded once, like he had expected that exact reaction. "Good," he said quietly. My grip tightened on the cup. What did I just drink? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned slightly on the counter. "Just coffee," he said. A pause. "And a little less of yesterday." My stomach tightened. I set the cup down slowly. The surface rippled slightly, even though my hands were still. The diner around me felt quieter now. Not empty, just missing edges, like details had been gently erased from the room while I wasn't looking. A man in the booth near the window laughed softly, but I didn't remember him being there before. I looked away for a second. When I looked back, his face felt unfamiliar. Not changed, just unanchored. The clerk tapped the counter lightly. Once. The sound arrived twice. Delayed. Wrong again. "You can have another," he said gently. I shook my head immediately. No. But even as I said it, the word felt less solid than I intended. Like refusal didn't carry weight here. The clerk tilted his head slightly. "You already did," he said. My breath slowed. I glanced at the cup again. It looked the same, but I couldn't remember when I had picked it up. The memory of the action felt missing, not erased, just never fully recorded. The clerk watched carefully, like he was measuring what I still had left. "What did I forget?" I asked quietly. He smiled faintly. "Something small," he said. A pause. Usually it starts small. My fingers felt slightly numb. Not cold, just distant. Like they didn't fully belong to me anymore. I looked down at my hands. They looked normal, but the feeling behind them wasn't complete. The clerk spoke again. "You'll notice it later," he said. "That's when people usually come back." A chill moved through me. Not physical, structural. Like something inside my memory had been removed and left an empty space behind it. I tried to recall the sip again, but the moment before was already blurred, like fog had settled directly inside my thoughts. I stood straighter. "I should go," I said. The clerk nodded, calm, accepting. "Of course," he said. A pause. "You always do." That sentence hit too softly, too familiar, like it had been said to me before many times and forgotten each time. I turned toward the exit slowly. The diner bell above the door didn't ring when I opened it. It just decided not to. Behind me, the clerk spoke one last time. Not loud, not urgent, just certain. "Don't forget to come back," he said. I stepped outside into the cold night air, and for a moment, I couldn't remember what I had been trying to leave behind. The night outside the diner felt thinner now. Not quieter, not darker, just less complete. Like pieces of it had been gently removed without warning. The gravel crunched under my boots as I stepped away from the light. Each sound arrived a fraction late, as if the ground was deciding whether to acknowledge me. I didn't remember walking far, only that I was suddenly outside again, near the edge of the parking lot. That's when I saw it. A dog, sitting under the dim glow of a broken lamppost. Still, patient, watching. It didn't bark, didn't move, didn't react to passing trucks or flickering lights. Just looked at me, like it already knew I would notice it eventually. Its fur was dull in color, almost dusted with ash and rain that never fully dried. But its eyes were clear, too clear. I stepped closer slowly. The gravel shifted under my feet, but the sound felt delayed again, like even the ground needed time to confirm I existed. The dog tilted its head slightly. I stopped. It mirrored the motion exactly a moment later. Not instantly, not fully delayed either. Somewhere in between. I frowned. "You lost," I whispered without meaning to. The dog stood up, slowly, carefully, then turned its body toward the edge of the lot. It took one step forward, stopped, looked back at me, waiting. I didn't know why, but I followed. My feet moved before thought caught up. The wind picked up slightly as we walked. Cold, thin, carrying the scent of oil and wet asphalt. The dog led me between parked trucks and empty fuel lanes. Each one felt slightly out of place, like they had been moved recently or remembered incorrectly. We passed pump 3. I paused briefly without knowing why, but the dog didn't stop. It just waited a moment ahead, as if expecting me to catch up to a decision I hadn't made yet. I followed again. The edge of the lot came into view. Beyond it, darkness and road, or what looked like road. The dog stopped right before the boundary line of light and shadow, then looked at me again, longer this time. I stepped closer. The ground here felt different, less solid, like it didn't fully commit to existing beyond the lights. "What are you showing me?" I asked quietly. The dog turned its head slightly toward the road, then back at me, then forward again. One direction, always the same direction. The exit, at least what looked like one. A narrow stretch of asphalt faded into fog beyond the truck stop boundary. But something about it felt wrong. Too clean, too simple, like it had been placed there rather than built. The dog took another step forward, stopped again, waited. My chest tightened slightly. I should have turned back. I knew that instinctively, but the dog didn't feel threatening. It felt certain, like it had already walked this path too many times to question it. I stepped forward slowly. The moment my foot crossed the edge of the light, the world changed slightly, not visually, but emotionally. The air grew quieter. Even the hum of distant engines faded into something distant and unsure. The dog continued forward, now leading me onto the road. No cars, no wind, no noise, just fog stretching ahead like unfinished thought. I followed. Each step felt less connected to the ground, like I was walking on memory instead of asphalt. The dog stopped again. Looked back. Its eyes held something strange now. Not emotion, recognition, like it remembered me from somewhere I hadn't been yet. It turned forward again, then barked once. Soft, controlled. The sound didn't echo. It just arrived, and something in the fog ahead responded. A faint shift, a suggestion of shape. I squinted, but it was gone before I could understand it. The dog took one final step toward the road, then stopped completely, waiting, as if this was a point where it always ended. I hesitated. My breath felt slower now, heavier. Behind me, the truck stoplights flickered faintly in the distance. Too far, too soft, like they were already forgetting me. The dog looked at me one last time, and in that moment, I understood something I didn't want to. It wasn't showing me the exit. It was showing me where people stopped remembering they ever had one. The road behind the truck stop had started to feel less like distance and more like hesitation, like the world was unsure whether it should continue unfolding. I returned without remembering the decision. One moment the fog was around me, and the next I was back on the flickering sign. The truck stop looked the same, but quieter now, like it had exhaled something important while I was gone. Inside, the air felt tighter, measured, controlled, the kind of silence that expects you to behave inside it. I noticed the clock immediately, above the counter. Large, old, analog. Its face was dim, but visible under the weak fluorescent light. The second hand wasn't moving. Neither was the minute hand. Only the hour hand sat slightly off-center, as if it had forgotten where it belonged. I stood there watching it for a while. Nothing changed. No ticking. No rhythm. No reassurance of time passing. Just stillness pretending to be time. A man nearby sipped coffee quietly. He didn't look at the clock. No one did. That felt wrong. I stepped closer to the counter. The clerk was there again. Same posture. Same calm expression. Like he had never left that exact position. "Something wrong?" he asked softly. I nodded toward the clock. "It stopped," I said. He looked up slowly, then smiled. "No," he replied. "It's waiting." The words settled in the air too easily, like they already belonged there. I stared at the clock again, still frozen. Then suddenly, it moved. Not slowly, not gradually. It jumped, straight to midnight. 12 a.m. The second hand snapped into motion for exactly one tick, then stopped again. I blinked. The diner lights flickered once in response. Every surface felt briefly closer, then returned to normal. A faint hum started somewhere in the room. Not electrical, not mechanical, something softer, like breathing through walls. The clerk didn't react. He just watched me watch it, then spoke. "It only moves at midnight," he said. I frowned. "That doesn't make sense." He nodded slowly. "It doesn't need to." I looked around the diner again. Something was different, not visible at first, but in rhythm. The people seated at tables were repeating small movements. Not exactly the same, but almost. A sip here, a blink there, a fork raised twice in slightly different ways. Like time was trying to replay itself, but couldn't remember the exact version. I turned back to the clock. It moved again, 1 second forward, then froze. Midnight still displayed, but now it felt heavier, like the number had weight behind it. The clerk leaned slightly forward. "You'll notice it soon," he said. "What?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he gestured upward, at the clock, at the frozen hands. "At midnight," he said, "things don't continue." A pause. They repeat. My stomach tightened slightly. I watched the second hand again, waiting. Nothing moved. Then, a faint shift, not in the clock. In the room, the same man at the booth near the window lifted his cup again, exactly like before. Same motion, same timing. But now I remembered seeing it already. A second time, or maybe more. I stepped back slowly. The clerk spoke again. "Don't worry," he said gently. "You'll get used to it." The clock ticked once more. Midnight again. Exactly midnight. But something in the diner reset with it. The same chair creaked. The same cup lifted. The same faint laugh from somewhere near the counter. Not repeated exactly. Reconstructed. Like the room was rebuilding itself from memory instead of continuing forward. I turned toward the door instinctively, but the movement felt familiar, like I had already done it. Twice, maybe more. The exit bell didn't ring when I reached it. It simply paused, as if deciding whether it should acknowledge me again. Behind me, the clerk spoke one last time. Soft, certain. "You can leave," he said. A pause. "But it will be midnight when you come back." The door opened into fog, and for a moment, I wasn't sure if I was stepping out for the first time or the same time again. The restroom hallway felt different this time. Not longer, not darker, just misaligned, like the walls had shifted a few inches away from where they used to be. Each step echoed too softly behind me, delayed, detached. I did remember deciding to come here again, but my feet already knew the way. The restroom door creaked open on its own timing. Inside, the air was colder than before. Not cold like outside, cold like absence. The sink dripped once, then didn't again, as if it had changed its mind. I looked up slowly. The ceiling was lower than I remembered, too low, almost close enough to touch if I raised my hand. But something wasn't right. There was a seam in the ceiling tiles, a line I hadn't noticed before, perfectly straight, too clean for something this old. I stepped onto the sink edge carefully. The metal groaned slightly under my weight, like it wasn't sure it should support me. I reached up, my fingers brushed the seam, and it gave way, not like breaking, like remembering it could open. A panel shifted slightly above me, then stopped, waiting. I pushed again. This time it opened fully. Cold air spilled down from above. Different air, drier, older, like it hadn't touched the restroom in a long time. I hesitated, then pulled myself upward. The space above the ceiling was not what I expected. Not insulation, not pipes. A narrow attic-like corridor stretched above the restroom, dimly lit by something I couldn't see. Not light bulbs, not natural glow, just faint visibility like the space remembered being seen. I climbed in slowly. The panel closed behind me without sound. Too clean, too final. Silence settled instantly, thicker than below. The kind of silence that feels organized. I crawled forward slightly. The floor wasn't wood or metal. It felt like compressed dust. Soft, cold, careful. Every movement left no echo, like the space refused to repeat anything. Then I saw the first object. A small bag, sitting neatly against the wall. Not dusty, not old, too intact for this place. I opened it slowly. Inside were keys, a wallet, and a folded receipt. The name on the receipt wasn't mine, but it felt close enough to make my stomach tighten. I turned further into the corridor. More objects appeared, placed carefully along the walls. Shoes, jackets, watches, all slightly different styles, all belonging to different people, but none looked abandoned. They looked left behind mid-use, like their owners had stepped out of them without finishing the action. I touched one jacket lightly. It was warm, not physically hot, just recently worn. I pulled my hand back immediately. A faint hum moved through the corridor, not from direction, from structure, like the attic itself was aware of being observed. I continued forward, slowly, carefully. Then I heard something ahead, soft shifting, like fabric moving. I stopped. The sound stopped too. I stepped forward again. It continued, matching me, not echoing, responding. I moved closer. The corridor widened slightly ahead, and there were more items, but newer, still clean, still warm. I recognized something unsettling immediately. A jacket I had seen someone wearing earlier in the diner, but now it was here, folded neatly, empty, as if the person had been removed from it, without resistance. My breathing slowed. Behind me, the corridor felt longer than before. I was sure of it. It hadn't been this far when I entered. Something shifted again in the space. Not sound, not movement, expectation. Then I saw the final section. A small opening in the attic wall, like a window without glass. Through it, I saw the diner below, but wrong, not fully aligned. People moved inside, but slightly out of sync with themselves, repeating gestures just before they finished them. The clerk stood behind the counter, watching upward, directly toward where I was. Even though he shouldn't have been able to see me, he smiled faintly, like he knew I had finally looked where I wasn't supposed to. I stepped back slowly. The attic creaked softly in response. Not loudly, just acknowledging. The objects around me seemed closer now, like they had shifted while I wasn't looking. I realized something then. This wasn't storage. It was continuation. A place where people ended up when the world stopped finishing them properly. The corridor behind me stretched further than before. I was certain I hadn't walked that far. but I had no proof otherwise. The hum grew softer again, almost gentle, like the space was preparing to decide something about me. I took one step backward, then another, and realized the attic was already arranging itself around the version of me that would stay. The gas station printer was still running when I stepped near it, a slow mechanical hum, like it was breathing through paper instead of air. No one stood behind the counter. No one needed to. The machine clicked once. Then again, a receipt slid out, fresh, still warm. My hand moved before I thought. I took it. The ink was still dark, slightly smeared at the edges like it hadn't decided what it wanted to be yet. I looked down. It showed my fuel purchase, my truck, my time of arrival. All correct. Too correct. Then I noticed something below it. A second line, printed after I had already picked it up. I froze. It wasn't static ink. It was changing, slowly forming new words across the paper surface, like it was remembering how to speak. Don't go back inside. My throat tightened. The words shifted again, like they were reacting to me reading them. You already did. I stepped back slightly. The receipt bent in my hand. Not physically, but like it was under pressure from both sides of time. Then more words appeared. You stopped at pump 3. My pulse slowed. I hadn't said that out loud, but something inside me agreed anyway. The paper darkened slightly, new ink forming underneath old ink. I tried to warn you. The machine behind the counter clicked again. Another receipt printed, but no one touched it. It kept printing anyway, line after line, like it had more to say than paper could hold. The receipt in my hand warmed slightly. Not heat, recognition. I dropped it instinctively, but it didn't fall properly. It hovered for a fraction of a second before landing. Wrong timing again. Everything wrong. I turned away quickly. The gas station lights flickered once above me, and for a second, I saw the receipt in my pocket, even though I hadn't picked it up again. The diner felt different when I returned again, like it had already finished waiting for me. The booths were mostly empty now, or maybe I just stopped noticing who was sitting there. A man stood near the entrance. Not the clerk, not a customer. Something in between. He didn't move when I approached. Just watched me arrive like it was scheduled. You're almost done, he said softly. I stopped. Done with what? I asked. He tilted his head slightly. With leaving, he said. My throat tightened. He stepped closer, slow and careful. Each movement felt like it was happening before I agreed to see it. Where was your last stop, he asked. I frowned. I don't remember, I said. That made him smile faintly. That's the correct answer, he said. My stomach sank slightly. He gestured toward the booths. Everyone here remembers differently, he continued, but they all end up here. I glanced around. A man in a booth lifted his cup, paused, lifted it again. Same motion, slight variation, wrong repetition. The stranger stepped closer again. Answer me, he said gently. Last stop. I hesitated. The word felt like it should exist inside me, but it didn't arrive cleanly. Only fragments. Road. Fog. Light. No beginning. No end. I don't know, I said again. He nodded, like that was expected. Then he leaned in slightly. Then you'll never leave it, he said. The lights above flickered once, and I swear the diner shifted slightly closer around us. The booths seemed tighter, the walls nearer, not moving physically, just deciding proximity. The stranger spoke again. Every road has a last stop, he said. You just don't remember choosing yours. My hands felt slightly numb. Not cold, not tired, just less connected. He stepped back finally, and the pressure in the room eased slightly, like something had been decided. The restroom mirror was fogged again when I entered, but the sink beneath it was clean. Too clean. I turned on the faucet. Water flowed slowly, too slowly. Then I looked down and saw the reflection, not of me, but of the road behind me. I froze. The sink water rippled, but the reflection didn't match it. It showed headlights, movement, a version of me driving. But I wasn't driving. Not here. I leaned closer. The reflection shifted slightly. A crash, too fast to fully understand. Then it reset, Same road again. Different outcome. The sink water stuttered, like it couldn't decide which version to show. I stepped back quickly. My reflection followed, but slower. Delayed again. Always delayed. The faucet dripped once. Inside the sink, the road bent. I saw something else now. Not the truck stop, but something approaching it. Something I hadn't reached yet. I turned off the faucet. The reflection didn't stop immediately. It kept showing movement. Ahead of me, without me. The diner was fuller now, or at least it looked fuller. But every time I focused on a booth, the details changed slightly. A man sat in the same corner seat, always the same seat, but never quite the same man. He lifted his fork, paused, lowered it, then did it again, slightly wrong each time. The plate in front of him stayed full, then empty, then full again. I walked closer. The booth didn't feel occupied. It felt assigned, like occupancy wasn't physical here. It was expectation. A waitress passed by, didn't look at the booth, didn't acknowledge it, even though I could clearly see someone there, or something there. The air near the booth felt thicker, like attention had weight. The man looked up briefly, and for a second, he wasn't there at all. Then he was again, sitting exactly the same, reconstructed. The sky outside the diner darkened suddenly. Not naturally, instantly, like someone turned down a layer of reality. Wind picked up around the truck stop perimeter, but only there, nowhere else. I stepped outside. The air was heavy with electricity, but no storm clouds were visible beyond the property line. Just empty sky. The wind circled the building but never left it, like the storm had learned boundaries. Lightning struck somewhere inside the cloudless sky, but only above the truck stop, not beyond it. I looked up, and in the flash, I saw silhouettes, not in clouds, in the air itself, standing, watching, gone when I blinked. The wind stopped abruptly, then restarted, resetting, like the storm was rehearsing. The diner door opened behind me. Warm light spilled out, but didn't reach far. It stopped at an invisible line. The storm stayed within it, always waiting. The diner felt colder when I returned again, not from the air, from the light. Everything inside looked slightly reset, like the room had exhaled and started over. The clerk stood behind the counter, same position, same calm posture, but something about him wasn't stable anymore. I watched him blink, once, and then again, but younger. I frowned slightly. He noticed me immediately. Back again, he said softly. His voice was unchanged, but his face wasn't. The lines near his eyes had faded slightly. I stepped closer. "You look different," I said. He smiled faintly. "I always do," he replied. Then he leaned forward to wipe the counter. As his hand moved, his wrist looked younger, then younger still. I froze. He looked up again, now slightly younger than before. Not dramatically, just enough to notice time moving in reverse. "You shouldn't watch too closely," he said gently, but I couldn't look away. He reached for a cup, and as his fingers touched it, his skin smoothed. His age peeled away backward, like time was being unwritten from him in layers. I stepped back instinctively. "What's happening to you?" I asked. He paused, and for a moment looked almost confused, then smiled again. "I'm returning," he said. Another blink. Even younger now. Too young. The lights flickered above him, and for a second, I thought I saw him as a child behind the counter. Then he was older again, then younger, fluctuating, like the diner couldn't decide who he was supposed to be. The clock above the counter ticked once, then stopped again. Midnight still frozen. The clerk spoke quietly. "Every time you come back," he said, "I get closer to the first time you arrived." My stomach tightened. I found the map on the counter, without it being placed there. One moment it wasn't there. The next, it was unfolded beneath my hand. I didn't remember touching it, but my fingers were already resting on the paper. It was blank at first. Then lines began to appear. Slowly, carefully, like ink was thinking before it committed, roads formed across the page. Highways, intersections, familiar curves. Then the truck stop appeared. Centered, always centered. I pulled my hand away. The map kept drawing itself. More roads appeared. Some I had never seen. Some I had already passed. Some I felt like I was still on. Then a small dot formed. It labeled me, not with a name, just a position. I stepped back. The map expanded slightly on its own, adding more space without changing size. Like reality was compressing itself into paper. A new line formed. It connected the truck stop back to itself. A loop. No exit. Only return. The paper felt warm now. Not heat. Awareness. I noticed it in the reflection first. A truck behind me. But I hadn't passed it. I checked the road. Nothing there. Just fog and empty asphalt. But in the mirror, it stayed. Always behind me. Always aligned. I changed lanes slightly. It followed in reflection. Without moving physically. Without sound. Without distance changing. I slowed down. It slowed down. But never closer. Never farther. Just present. I stopped the truck. The reflection stopped too. But the real road stayed empty. I stepped out slowly. The air outside felt heavier. When I looked back at the mirror, the truck was still there, sitting exactly where it had always been, even when it shouldn't exist. The diner was nearly silent now. Not empty, just reduced. A man sat in the same booth every time I looked. Or maybe different men occupying the same position. It was hard to tell anymore. He never left, never stood, never shifted fully into or out of movement. I watched him lift a cup, pause, then lower it, then repeat, each time slightly off, like memory was failing to copy him correctly. I approached slowly. He didn't look up, but I felt noticed anyway. "You've been here long," I said. He finally looked at me, and for a moment, I couldn't remember if he was real, or just the idea of someone sitting there. "I don't leave," he said softly. A pause. "Neither do you." My breath caught. Behind him. The booth seemed deeper than it should have been, like it extended further into space than the building allowed. I stepped back slowly, but the booth didn't get farther. It stayed close, always close. The truck stop lights were dimming when I stepped outside again, not flickering, not failing, leaving, one by one, like they had finished their purpose. The building looked smaller now, or maybe I was larger in comparison. It was hard to tell anymore. Every exit I tried led back to the same sign. Same glow, same silence. I stood at the edge of the parking lot. The road ahead stretched into fog, but it didn't feel like distance. It felt like conclusion. The final light above the sign flickered once, then held steady, then flickered again. I stepped forward and realized I wasn't arriving anywhere. I was remaining. The truck stop wasn't behind me anymore. It was around me, above me, inside the space between steps. The final light dimmed slowly, not going out, just becoming less willing to be seen. And in that fading glow, I understood something I couldn't fully hold. I had never really left. Not once. The road didn't end. It only learned my shape.